Exercise Confidence listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. In this episode, I have the opportunity to sit down with the tenacious Allie Curtis. Allie is notably the first female artillery officer in the Rhode Island National Guard, which I just think is so cool. In addition to that, she holds degrees from Syracuse, Brown, and Salve Regina, and she was also Miss Rhode Island 2015. Allie shares with us why she thinks it is so important to do things that get you out of your comfort zone and to even try one thing each day that may scare you. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode with Allie Curtis on Exercise Confidence. All right, Exercise Confidence listeners, today I am here with Allie Curtis. Allie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Allie, go ahead and tell us about yourself in about 20 seconds.
So I think I would say I'm most well known for being Miss Rhode Island 2015, but that was a while ago, and it's hard to believe it's been 6 years since that. In the years since, I have gone on to join the Rhode Island Army National Guard. I am both an artillery officer and a public affairs officer in the Rhode Island National Guard, and this past year I became the first woman in the state to commission into field artillery.
Wow.
So very exciting. Part of that links back to, I think, a big part of my life when I was Miss Rhode Island and beyond that, and that is women's representation in all the spaces they've been historically underrepresented.
I'm so excited that I get to interview you during Women's History Month.
Yes.
I don't even know that it was intentional. That I think all of the guests I have lined up for this month that will be airing in March and are women, so it's exciting. Allie, the first question I want to ask you is, have you always been a confident person?
In many ways, I would say yes, in the sense that I have always had the wherewithal to get up in front of a crowd. I've always been very comfortable in front of crowds. I grew up in theater. My parents were in film and journalism, and I think because of that, and dance as well, like those are all reasons that I've had a level of confidence. But I definitely have honed in on my confidence from competing in pageants, and it's definitely something that isn't just a one-hit wonder. You don't just become a confident individual when you're born or growing up. It's something you have to continuously practice, and I think that's been a big part of a lot of who I am.
I like the way that you said it's not a one-hit wonder, and it does take a lot of practice, because the slogan here at Exercise Confidence is that it's like a muscle, and in order to grow it, you have to, stretch it and exercise it, because I have found that it's so true. I have days where I feel like I'm on top of the world with my confidence, and then I have days where I'm like scraping myself off the pavement, like, what is happening? But it's trying to keep that consistency in the practice of being a confident person. So taking it back, keeping it kind of at that beginning phase of Allie's life, do you have like a moment when you were young where you really felt confident in something that you were doing or performing or achieving?
So I competed in National American Miss growing up, and I remember going to a presidential inauguration, and gosh,
oh,
this
wow.
was so bold of 18-year-olds, but this is, again, so much so in tandem with what I was trying to convey through my platform as Miss Rhode Island. I remember going to Obama's first inauguration, and I was a high school student, and I remember looking up at all of the members of Congress and the president and saying, I can totally do that one day. Yeah. And oh my goodness, I have a lot to learn still, have a lot to learn then. I had some education to get behind me, had a lot of life lessons to learn. But I just remember having that unbridled confidence as a 16-year-old saying, I could totally be a member of Congress one day. And that's a huge problem that we have in the gender gap for women in politics and a lot of other industries, where there is this gap of young girls saying, well, I can totally be president one day, or I can be a general one day, or I'll be an astronaut one day. And then there's that gap of confidence as you get older, and there's also a lack of representation. There's a lot of things at play. But addressing that and realizing that was something in me very early on was something that I wanted to inspire in other women. And that's why I made my platform Leading Ladies, equipping women with the skills to lead.
I love that that was your confident moment, because I can like empathize with you. I remember, not in obviously the same way, I didn't have such a cool story as getting to go see President Obama be inaugurated, but I just remember being like in high school at one point, and it was like a college fair or something. And I looked at my mom who was with me, and I was just like, I probably sound so arrogant now, but I was like, Mom, do you have any sunglasses? And she looks at me like, what are you talking about? Like, we are inside of a college fair at 7:00 at night. Like, what do you need sunglasses? I'm like, because my future is so bright. Like,
I love that.
But
no, we need. Here's the thing, though. We say, "Oh, it's so arrogant of us," or "Oh my God, I can't believe I thought that." But how many times do women shrink because they feel they need to be less of the big person they are in various spaces where we've been underrepresented or undermined or underpaid? And when we actually own that and we say, I do have great ideas, or I am educated, or I do have the experience, or gosh darn it, I am worth it and I deserve to be here, that's when we're able to create effective change, because our voices are actually being heard, and I certainly hope being taken seriously.
Oh yeah, I think that there is something still, unfortunately, with what you just said, that is a battle of being taken seriously. It's almost as if, oh, that's cute that she wants to do that. And it does go back to what you mentioned when you said that, girls should be able to see themselves, women should see themselves as members of Congress, as aspiring to be a general, whatever it is, there shouldn't be that limitation. And I do wholeheartedly agree that it has to do with representation, because if you don't see it, it's hard to believe it and even imagine it.
Yeah. I always say I think I would have joined the military so much sooner, and it was something that I wanted to do. It was something I had a curiosity for, and I sat on it for so long. And I remember thinking, well, I don't see anyone like myself. Like, I'm a very bold individual. I'm very expressive. I'm, in a realm that's very glamorous and very non-military. And I'm like, well, where does sparkly pageant queen fit into all of this? This is what I want to do. How do I get there? But I didn't have one great deal of female representation. I just personally in my life hadn't had any, rarely had any women that I knew who had served or were serving. And it wasn't until I told a recruiter back in, oh my God, it must have been 2015, that, I want to join the Army, but hold on, we need to wait until after Miss Rhode Island is over because I'm competing. And the recruiter saying, oh my God, the best commander I ever had was Miss Rhode Island 1989. Let me get you on the phone with. And I now work with the chief of staff, who is a former Miss Rhode Island.
Whoa.
It was great for me to know that there was somebody who had the same path as me. And while she was at Miss America and was a non-finalist at Miss America like myself, she was able to stand on that stage and say, well, I have another desire to serve my country in a different way. And she was able to go home, enlist, and do that. And she's now a colonel. And it's amazing for me to look at that as, representation and seeing someone like myself. But it's always been said, famous quote from Marie Wilson, you can't be what you can't see. And it's hard to even know that some things are out there as a path for you. Like one of my current jobs in the Army, and I always have to mention I have two very, very different jobs.
Yeah.
An artillery officer, so I work with cannon artillery, and I'm a public affairs officer, so I work with the media. And one of those things has been very natural to me in my life, and the other I've had to learn a great deal. But in my lifetime, there has been, and for more than half of my life, the job that I have now wasn't open to women. And it's wild for me to say, wow, like in my lifetime, there are women that wouldn't do this. There are people who would say women are unfit to fill this kind of role, and here we are, and we're doing it, and we're excelling.
It's so inspiring to hear you talk about and to see. I know for myself personally, I'm in the process of applying and waiting to hear back from the law schools that I'm trying to get into, and I love that viewpoint that you have of wanting to be that person that creates and paves these ways for other, because it's something that has always been so important to me. And I think that's why I really enjoy being able to do this show and put this show together, because I get to talk to so many people from so many different walks of life. And one of the things that I've seen a bit, but not with everybody, but a bit, is that wanting to serve, wanting to give, wanting to create. So I definitely want to talk more about like how and why the military was your choice for service and how your confidence allowed you to just boldly step into that.
Yeah. I had actually been in Washington, D.C., and I had just finished college. So this was fall 2014. I just graduated from college. And I felt some pull, obviously, in my desires as a teenager to one day join Congress or something of the like and do something that made a difference in my country in some public service capacity. And I remember being in Washington, D.C., and I was working with both Running Start, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit that trains women for political leadership, but also was serving my fellowship in Ileana Ross-Laitman's office, who was a congresswoman from Miami and a trailblazer in many rights. And I loved what I did. I loved just being in that kind of environment where people around you are dedicated to making change in some capacity. And at some point during my time in DC, I felt, you know what, I don't see myself working on the Hill any longer. Like, this is a great place to come back to. But I felt a different sense of duty for my country. And I knew that I wanted to go home and enlist in the Army National Guard. And I went home, I started talking to a recruiter, Miss Rhode Island happened, Miss Rhode Island further solidified, and I remember thinking, I'm like, maybe I'm totally off my rocker, because as soon as my parents found out I wanted to join the military, they were like, what? What? We've put you through the past almost, decade of pageants.
Right.
And you just graduated from college with a dual degree, and now you want to totally take that off the rails. I was accepted to graduate school at that point. I was applying to other graduate schools at that point. And I was like, no, I want to be in the Army. That's just what I want to do. And once I had my mind set on that and I started seeing all of the different opportunities, and part of that too is also that I have always had a draw to leadership and
right.
Supporting others who are in your ranks, whether it's as Lieutenant Allie Curtis or Miss Rhode Island Allie Curtis. I've always wanted to help train and inspire other people to rise up within, because it's not just about having a leader at the top, but people who are able to lead behind you and as you go. And you can't just kick down the door. You have to bring other people with you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really attracted me to the military was the idea that you are going to be put in life or death situations, mm-hmm. and you're going to be put in so many different situations that are outside of your comfort zone, and you don't ever fully have that full courage until you've tested it and you know what you're capable of, and you have continuously trained in these kinds of environments. And I love that you say that confidence is like a muscle. You have to exercise it, because in a TED Talk I gave in 2018, I talked about courage and doing one thing a day that scares you. Mm-hmm. It's the famous old Eleanor Roosevelt quote that I lived by, and I challenged myself to do that for a full year. So I gave a TED Talk on that, and I said, courage is like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you flex it, the stronger it gets. So the more you're putting yourself in that hot water, the more well-equipped you are to handle the greatest challenges that life throws at you. And I thought, well, what a better way to do that than join the military? So here I am. It's been 4 years since I initially enlisted, and It's been the best 4 years of my life.
That is so exciting to hear that journey. Upon enlisting, I have to ask, because I'm sitting here thinking like, gosh, that would scare the ever-living crap out of me. as exciting as it, because with my own background, my father was a United States Marines veteran. And so as a child, I just idolized him for being a Marine. And I would say as a kid, like, I want to be a Marine. I want to join the Marines. I want to join the Marines. And my parents would kind of go like, okay. And then I got to a point in my life where I was like, heck no, like that is so scary. And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of control that you rescind. And I'm a control freak. So that was part of the reason why I was like, well, I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
And initially, Was there any fear for you upon enlisting, not only just as a woman, but just as the realities of what it means to basically give yourself over to your nation? And if so, how were you able to reconcile that?
Well, I've always been a very busy person, and I've had a million things going on at once. Like, it's been the juggling act of my life consistently. And one of the great things about giving up control was allowing myself to say, I'm focusing on one thing and only one thing, and I'm surrendering my job and the way of life that I'm used to embark on something new and different and exciting. And I loved that. I am somebody who likes a lot of control. One of the great things is, because I am an active duty member of the National Guard, I'm still in my home state, so I feel like I have some semblance of control, and I'm not getting moved around the country here, there, and everywhere, but I'm able to still travel and train around the country. So I do understand wanting to have some semblance of control, but I just knew the greater piece of that was that I was going to learn a great deal more. And again, that whole idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is giving yourself something that has a lot of unknowns, and there are a lot of variables that you can't control, and cell phone, relationship, friendships, packing it all away for a bit in order to embark on something different. That was pure excitement to me. So I think that's one of the ways I was able to kind of circumvent any of those fears and realize that I was getting on an adventure, and it was going to be different. And whether I loved it or hated it, it was still a life experience that would shape me.
Fear, obviously, can deter a lot of people, and it can also feed into insecurities, which then eats away at our confidence. Being an artillery officer, how has that journey impacted your confidence and growth with this opportunity that you have taken full hold of?
So I will say this in a couple of parts here. First of all, you asked earlier, are you a confident individual? Have you always been a confident individual? And while I said yes, there was always a part of me that had a great deal of confidence. One area I felt like I struggled a lot with, and I think it's natural in different periods of our life where we don't feel like we're at the point we need to be. We don't feel like we're doing the things we need to do. Somebody has a great job or has had this great accomplishment or just bought a house, got engaged, did this, did that, whatever. And that can be so insidious to your confidence if you let that get to you. And I remember I had continued, so it's at this point, 2016, I had continued on in my head thinking, I still want to join. And then when I won Miss Rhode Island, of course, I was like, well, if I still want to join after Miss Rhode Island, I know that this is really for me. It's done with grad school. And I had this dream one night that I saw somebody that looked like myself wearing a uniform. And I woke up and it really bothered me. And I was like, I saw another girl in my dream who was my age, who's out there doing the army thing, and here I am just standing by watching. And I'm like, no, the thing that I need to do, because I have everything in my power to go after, whatever it is, whether it's the military or running for office or that big job you want, the big promotion, everyone has the wherewithal to make the ask, to make the leap, to do it. You just have to do it. And if you're going to sit on the sidelines and you're going to have something holding you back, whether that's fear or the lack of confidence or what have you, you're really only to blame for yourself. So I can't sit there and say, well, I wish I had that woman's life, or I wish I was doing this, because I just need to do it. So after doing that, I think that brought a great deal of confidence for me, but it's been continuous steps of building confidence since then. So I go through basic training. I initially came in as human resources specialist, went through that training, and then it was on to officer candidate school. And officer candidate school, it was interesting because I had gone through all of the training. I was done with being a trainee and all the things, you think you've seen in the movies and how terrible basic training is. I'm like, oh yes, okay, this is all done. Well, no, then I go to officer candidate school and it's like that all again, but worse. And I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do as an officer. And I thought, I just got a master's that was focused in intelligence and cybersecurity. Maybe I'll be an intel officer or cyber officer. And I start getting more into the thick of officer candidate school, and I realized I just want to be in combat arms. And that's totally not something I saw myself doing initially when I joined. And then I realized not only did I want to be in combat arms, but we had a severe need to get women in the state to go into combat arms roles. So at the time, we had no women in infantry, we had no women in field artillery. There were still a lot of states that had the same kind of situation. And with the Army, they had a policy called Leader First, where you can't start enlisting those junior members until you have an officer or a non-commissioned officer in that unit. So again, like kicking indoors, you can't just go yourself. You got to bring people behind you. I'm thinking about all of the girls who could be coming in and enlisting and going into these roles, and all of the women who want to pursue this but can't right now. So I make it a goal in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm going into field artillery. And one of the reasons for that, too, is it's very mathematically driven, and I love the academia behind it. So I decide I'm going to do this. And I remember, like, being on this rock, and the commander walks by, and he's asking everyone, what do you want to go into? What do you want to do? And he'd hear aviation, infantry, military intelligence. And I just, like, nodded my head and was like, yeah, military intelligence. Yep, that's what I want to do. And I'm, like, dying on the inside, like, screaming, I want to be an artillery officer.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I can't say that because people aren't going to take me seriously as a female wanting to go into combat arms. And it's something I've heard from so many other women who've had people or been in environments who just discouraged it or said, oh, that's no place for women. Like, and that bothered me. I was like, why am I shrinking? Why am I talking about what I really, really want? So eventually I was like, no, we're going to breathe some life into this dream. We're going to actually speak it into existence and start telling people. So started telling people around my office. I started telling other folks at my training site, my classmates. And part of the reason I didn't want to come out right and say that I wanted to do that is because I hadn't yet met the physical standard to get there. And that scared the hell out of me. So it pushed me even harder to put that out there, to say, I want to do this, but I still have to meet the standard, and I haven't got there yet. And I'm scared shitless that I'm going to tell you all I want to be an artillery officer, and I'm not going to make it. And I worked so tirelessly just to make sure that I would be all fine come day of the testing. And once I did, I felt this weight lift off me. Like, I'm totally capable. I'm doing it. We've taken a step, but there's still so many other steps to take. So that was kind of my path to going into artillery and learning a lot about my confidence and how we can trick ourselves into putting other things out there into the universe, or even talking ourselves out of doing something entirely. And it makes me more confident every day to say that I took this head on. I decided not to shrink. I decided not to find something else because, oh, women can't do this, or women haven't historically been here, or you're not going to fit in there, or it's going to be really hard. I've taken all of the negativity that I've heard and I've turned it around, and I can't imagine not doing this with my life. And even when things have been really difficult, like artillery school, I'm going to just be completely honest. I went to Brown. Brown was difficult. Brown was probably one of the most academically challenging things I've ever done. And I thought, I'm going to be fine going to an Army school. I got to artillery school, and I was blown out of the water with how much more labor intensive that was, and how much more damning that was on my mind. And every time things would get really difficult, I would just say, you know what? There is nowhere else I'd rather be, and we're going to keep fighting. And that's really where I've been able to derive confidence from.
We're gonna keep fighting. That is such a great quip. That is such a great slogan. I think that can easily be coined as the Allie Curtis slogan. Because
it's so spot on.
It is. It just lends itself to a multitude of things that anybody could want to achieve or work towards, in terms of, obviously, yes, military, but also whether or not you may want me to say this, I mean, you are shouldering such a big thing here. As you mentioned, being the first woman in that position in your state, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is incredible. And the fact that, like, you're saying, you know, I'm doing this for me, but I know that I'm doing it for more than me. You know, and it's so funny because for a couple Halloweens ago, you were Alexandra Curtis, right?
Yeah, Alexandra Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, Alexandra Hamilton. I'm sorry, Alexandra Hamilton. Duh.
Yeah.
So yeah, a few Halloweens ago, you were Alexandra Hamilton, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And I don't know if it's because of that correlation, but I've been listening to Hamilton like all weekend, and I don't know if it's because I knew I was going to be like interviewing you today, but I mean, there's so much like spunk and go get it, relentless belief in yourself that you can just get from watching that musical. And so I always get that from you. And
well, thank you. I love Hamilton, so that's like the best compliment.
Yes. Man, I like when you said, you know, at first you didn't want to tell anybody about this dream you had, and then you did. And I think accountability is so important when it comes to whatever it is that you're doing, especially a confidence journey. Yeah. And I'm going to just say right now, listeners, I think if you have something that you are timidly dreaming about, I would encourage you to boldly tell somebody that you trust about it, because I have seen how, for me especially too, like time and time again, that really keeps me to it, because eventually I know that person is going to come ask me like, hey, how are you doing on that journey? Like, how's that work going that you're supposed to be getting after? And I'm just like, yep, you're right. Like, I got to get it. I got to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting.
Yes. So you need to have those accountability partners. And I spoke a little bit about this earlier. I gave a TED Talk. It was called Daring Daily, and it was all based on the Eleanor Roosevelt quote of doing one thing a day that scares you. So I kept a jar in my room, and every day I'd scribble something on a Post-it note, and it could have been something like asking a question in class that I thought was going to make me sound really dumb, or competing for Miss Rhode Island, or competing for Miss America, whatever it was, like big things. Or like, I had this like new outfit I wanted to try. It wasn't totally my style, but I put it on anyways, and I made it work, and I was worried that like I was totally going to just fall flat on my face with this. Like, the most trivial to the most serious things were in this jar. And I had also just gone to this conference where it was a women's leadership conference for an organization called Vote Run Lead. No shocker here. It was about getting women to run for public office. And they said, hey, everyone who's listening to this, you're going to be scared. You're going to want to make a difference in your community. You're going to want to run for office one day, and at some point you're going to be paralyzed from your fear. And fear means go. Fear means go. And get yourself an accountability partner who is going to listen to what you want to do. They're going to make sure you're actually following through. And I had been to that conference right around the time I started this scare jar, if you will, and I was out at a Miss Rhode Island appearance with my now roommate, one of my best friends, and Miss Rhode Island 2013, Jess Marfio, and we got in the car, and I said, before we go home, we got to have a talk. And she's like, what is going on? And I said, I need you to be my accountability partner. I need to go to MEPS, which is the medical entry that you have to go through whenever you're going to enlist into any branch of the military. Mm-hmm. So I need to go schedule my MEPS appointment and go in the next year. Like, from this day, it is the first week of March, 2016. By this time next year, I will have gone to MEPS, and I will, if not, be already sworn in on my way to swearing into the Army. And she's like, okay, got it. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I'll check in with you on that. And lo and behold, a year later, February, I was up at MEPS, and then March, I was all in, cleared to go, sworn in, signed, sealed, and delivered, enlisted. And that was really powerful to me because I had spoken that to somebody else who knew that that was in my heart. And there was no way she was going to let me just walk idly through life and be like, 20 years from now, remember when you said you wanted to do this? And I just said, cool, that's cute. Like, I knew she would really hold my feet to the fire on that. And I would do that for anyone who says the same thing. So you have to have those people in your life who will hold you accountable. And if for whatever reason you start making excuses for yourself, they're going to be the people who are like, all right, you're ridiculous. You're being an idiot right now. Get it together and get back out there.
Yeah, accountability is so important, and making sure it, because I know that you could think of a dozen people off the top of your head that you could have told that to that would not have actually made sure you followed through on it. So again, listeners, I would say don't lie to yourself either when it comes to things like this.
Yeah.
Don't say like, oh yeah, my one coworker that I see every 2 weeks, I'm going to tell them about this thing I want to do and they'll forget it in passing and then I'll never have to do it. No. Like, tell the person that you trust most, your best friend, maybe it's a parent, a teacher, a coach, whoever it is, a roommate.
Heck, maybe you even just put it on social media, and I'm sorry, but if you told all social media you're going to go run a marathon, you better be running that marathon.
No, that's a great thing. Actually, what's funny is I, in general, am a very, like, private person, especially when it comes to like my actual personal life. Like, of course I have Instagram and I love posting like when I eat somewhere cool or like go for a drive up to Central California or something.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm so not one to like lay my heart out there. And when I was doing this like law school journey, I remember I was so terrified to put out there like, hey, like I'm doing this, and if you are of the praying type or the good vibes type, like I could use it when I take my LSAT, because I was so terrified, like, well, what if I get a bad score and people are asking me all about it, or like, what if I don't get in, you know? But you have there, especially in today's day and age with how connected the world is through social media, whether you know these people well or not. I mean, that is also a great point right there. And segueing into the cyber world, you have your master's, as you said, in cybersecurity and intel?
So I did my first master's in public affairs at Brown University, and then I went on to Salve Regina University the following year to do a master's in, it was the full name, super long, can look at it right now from where I'm sitting. It is Administration of Justice and Homeland Security with a focus on cybersecurity and intelligence. So, yeah, mouthful. But I actually was able to go get that degree at no cost because of Miss Rhode Island, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In that program, was there any gender disparity?
Oh, yeah. I walked into my first in-person class, looked around, thought maybe I'm lost because I was entirely in a room full of men.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know, like, is this the class? Is this high-tech crimes? Yes. Okay, cool. I'm like in heels. I have a cape on. I have a purse with me. I have like a wide-brimmed hat.
Love it.
And I'm like, oh my God, I don't belong here.
What was your dual degree from your undergrad in that segued you into this field?
It was political science and public relations.
Okay, so did you have any sort of cyber background going into this program?
I actually, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'd already been accepted to grad school when I went to D.C. for my fellowship, and I had been accepted to Syracuse for information security technology, and I had no background whatsoever, but I figured it would be a benefit because my goal at the time was to run for office and be like the very cyber tech savvy young Congress member,
for sure.
What have you. And it's still so important. There are a lot of things that are very important to me because you go to school for public policy and you're like, oh my God, there's so many issues in the world and I want to solve them all.
Yep.
But I had determined very early on, and I think this in large part is due to the nature of Syracuse. Syracuse is very well known for public policy and anything in the scope of political science. It is very well known for public communications, and it's very well known for information technology. And I did both of those, first two as an undergrad, and then decided as a graduate student rather, why not just go back for more, because Syracuse has been so good to me. And I did one class there my first semester, and then that was great, but I decided I really wanted to be at Brown, and I applied to Brown, said if we get in, cool. If we don't, go ahead, enlist in the Army. And then I got into Brown, and I was like, well, I still want to enlist in the Army, so we're going to do that a little bit further on down the road.
In your academics, you have had a really cool, like, extensive, I would say, journey, because you went from New York and then you went to Rhode Island, and you mentioned that while you were in Rhode Island, one of your degrees was completely paid for by the Miss Rhode Island organization, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so how has pageantry fed into your, I don't just want to say self-confidence in general, because having an opportunity like that where the organization that you competed for and represented gave you a full opportunity that essentially was a 100% belief in you and your abilities. Like, hey, we believe in you in this realm of academics. How did an opportunity like that impact your confidence in terms of whether it was academics, whether it was pageantry, like at that time in your life?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was interesting because I would always tell people, hey, I'm at Salve on a full ride scholarship, or I would introduce myself at the start of class when people talk about their jobs and all of that. And at that point, I didn't really have a career. I just come out of Brown, said, hey, I just got my MBA from Brown. I'm now here on a full ride scholarship. And there was always something behind me that was like, oh, it's a full ride scholarship because of Miss Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. It's not like I applied here and they're like, wow, this is the most brilliant human we've ever seen. And then I'd always have to stop myself and say, no, because there's more to a person than their academics. There's more to a pageant queen than their looks. Mm-hmm. And so much, especially so in this day and age, we have pageant contestants and title holders who know how to rally a crowd. We know how to get people behind a cause, mm-hmm. support something so much bigger than ourselves. And in so many ways, we have kind of a generation of activists and advocates in very diverse and important spaces. And that's as much a bit important to having something like a scholarship for academics, and in many ways even more so, because you want to see people who are actionable. It's one thing to go to school for public policy and public affairs, or something like cyber, or, you know, marrying the two up and saying, hey, I'm going to be a congresswoman one day, and I really want to focus on issues that impact us based on technology. I mean, look at Congress talk about Facebook and data and privacy, and there are so many people who just don't get it.
Yeah.
And for me, I was very much so confident in the fact that I knew I was taking this education to turn it around for something that was actionable and something that would make a difference in the future. And it wasn't, especially at that point, it wasn't like, oh, I'm here because I'm going to get a raise from my job if I send this and, you know, make it happen here. No, like, we are here, we're getting this, and we're actually going to do something. It's not just like, hey, check that box, moving forward. We're really making a difference because of that. And it's the legacy of Miss Rhode Island. It's not just a year of wearing the crown and going to appearances, but the things I talked about and cared about during that year will continue on and they'll live on. And that was a worry that I had too after Miss Rhode Island, where I'm like, do I even matter anymore? Well, yeah. There are some title holders that put the crown away and they go on and they live their life as if it, you know, never happened. And there are some people who are very passionately still engaged in the same things they were before. And that was always very important to me.
Yeah, I can attest to that 100%. And I also understand what you mean about you were kind of not sure if you wanted to share it off firsthand in your classes. Like, oh, I'm here because I was Miss Rhode Island. Because oh God, I hate to keep bringing up the same topic. But when I was doing my personal statement for law school, I was so fortunate because the top #1 school I want to go to, I was put in contact with another woman who did the Miss America organization in the state I'm at here in California through one of my friends who I was doing a temp job with over Christmas. And she was like, yeah, let me put you in contact with her. She went to law school and blah, blah, blah. And I had my personal statement, and I thought it was really good. I was like super into it. It touched on a big issue that happened in my life when I was in a really gnarly car accident, and how that took away like my athletic scholarship that I'd initially had when I started college, and then kind of went through my recovery. And the woman, as she was critiquing it, goes, "You don't mention like any of your pageant stuff in this at all. Like, why?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I just didn't think it was like important or like pertinent to this." And she's like, "Well, let me give you a call later." So she calls me when she gets off work and we chat. And she's like, "Just tell me about how your life evolved after." And I start talking about how the whole reason I wanted to attend law school is because I am so passionate about certain social issues. And that stemmed from my work with the Miss America organization and my local titles that I was able to get into the community and hear about. And especially I was Miss Anaheim, which is one of the top 3 largest cities here in California. And there are so many issues and there's so much disparity in wealth and different issues that really need to be addressed with council members. So I would remember going to things like up in the hills and being like, wow, I'm at like a fancy country club. And the next day I'd be at like a Title I school with kids that would only get a chance to eat at school. And I would get then these opportunities to go to these meetings with the person who was representing us in Congress at the time, who did an event for veterans. And I would get invited to luncheons with city council, and I would be like, hey, you know, I was at this place the other day and this thing happened, and I think it's important that we pay attention to things like this and the people in this area of our community just as much as the people in the other areas of our community. And she was like, and why would you ever leave any of that out if that is such a big part of why you decided you want to become an advocate for people who may never have a chance to advocate for themselves? And I was like, dang, you're right. And it was that stigma of not wanting to come off as like, oh, well, I did pageants, look at me. And it's like, no, it was a huge part of my social impact and why I want to continue to make a social impact.
Yeah. And we actually had this conversation. I've gotten really into Clubhouse lately, and I got into Clubhouse because of Caroline Bright, who was Miss Vermont 2010, who I actually went to work for in 2016 as her campaign manager.
I remember that.
A second time, because she is a boss. But Caroline had this whole Clubhouse chat on this the other day where there was a contestant that said, do I put this on a professional resume? And I had said, you know, recently I have been like avoiding it. And I have only avoided it in the military context. Every time I go to a new military school, I won't mention it to a soul because as far as I'm concerned, it's not conducive to military training. I don't need that any attention. I don't need special attention. I don't want any attention. Like, especially going through basic training or going to school like artillery school where people are already judging me because I'm a woman and people are already underestimating me. I'm like, I'm going to do all the things and then I'm going to tell you I was a Miss America contestant.
Yeah.
That's the setting that I support that in. Caroline was going on about how she doesn't ever hold back with it because if it's a problem for anywhere she's applying to work, she says that's an unfriendly, hostile work environment. I don't want to be there. Unsupportive people, if they can't see that there's value in that, or even let me explain why there's value in that. And must have been 2014, so it was right after I got first runner-up for Miss Rhode Island. I wrote this piece because I had just spent time on the Hill, and a lot of people in my circle would say, well, you want to go into politics, but one of the first things that comes up when we Google you is swimsuit pictures. For me, I'm like, well, first of all, like, let's think about this. Like, provides me scholarship, great opportunity for networking. Miss Rhode Island does this, and this. Of course, like, not a big deal. It wasn't anything that was inappropriate. And then I remember there was so much talk around a senator who had an underwear shoot back in the day. But it wasn't negative, like, in a way that it would have been for a woman. So I wrote this blog post, and I posted my swimsuit picture right up front and center. So everyone who shared it, my swimsuit would be all over the place.
Right.
And on top of the way, like, the link cut my picture, it was like, here's your thighs and stomach for everyone. So, like, it went from scary to, like, this is terrifying. So I posted this blog post, and the title was bearing it all. And
love it.
It was about my thoughts on the swimsuit competition and why I was totally okay with it, and why it's so fine for women to have modeled the swimsuit and still be effective and efficient leaders and public servants. And, oh, by the way, we have a lot of double standards, because the way we talked about a man who did this, we would never give that much grace to a woman.
Oh, yeah.
And in every turn, it's important for me to address sexism and double standards, and I am happy to do it and throw my swimsuit pictures up as tribute.
Heck yeah, I agree. I know, like, that was it sounds so cliche, but, like, it was one of the most empowering times in my life, and I felt so proud, not just of like me and my physical accomplishments of all my working out and what I was able to achieve like in the gym, lifting weights, and how far I was able to now run because I was really focused on presenting my best self. But honestly, like, it felt so dang good to just be like, I am a woman. Like, I am proud to be a woman. Like, that is all of this right here, this opportunity that I'm going after full force. Like, yes, I just talked to you in circles in an interview, and you loved every second of it. And then I got to come out here and show you how graceful I can be, even though I'm a college athlete who's normally running around barreling through girls on a rugby pitch, you know? But I'm here in a gown and heels. And oh yes, also I have trained for months now, years now, so I can sing this beautiful piece for you. And by the way, check it out. I'm a lady. Look at this. So yeah, I loved the swimsuit portion. I love that you're taking it on like that, because I've had that come up with a couple people, because I work for a church, and my as one of my jobs, I do youth group. I lead youth group, and it's been an issue where somebody has said, you know, do you think it's really appropriate for you to be posting a photo of yourself on a stage in a bikini and in high heels? And I said, every single man in this room has been at a beach without their shirt on.
Every single one of them.
So I don't see a problem with it. And I tried turning it around a little bit, like, you know, we're called to love and we're made in God's image. So shouldn't I love myself that has been made in his image? Like, I'm not trying to do anything wrong. I'm not completely bare. I'm not doing it, you know, in any grotesque way. It's a part of the competition, and praise the Lord, it got me through my undergrad completely debt free. Like, so
that's incredible.
Not apologize for that, you know?
My favorite is when someone tries to turn it on you, like, oh, you are less of a Christian, or you are less of a whatever because you've done this. And you're like, excuse me. That has no bearing on who I am as a woman, as a Christian, as an intellectual, as a leader, what have you. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had to really battle with that. And for a long time, I think because I got involved in the Miss America organization a bit later. I didn't start competing until I was 23 or 22, so I didn't have much eligibility. Once I finally, I was the first year I competed, I did 2 locals, and I placed, but I didn't win. So then the second year I competed, I finally got a title. And I think I was so proud that I didn't care about anybody else's opinion, because I knew how hard it was for me to get there, and that I wanted it. And I knew why I wanted it. And I knew it's because I wanted to have an opportunity to serve the communities that meant so much to me that I was a part of. And I guess I would pose that to you listeners. If you have something that you are so passionate about, you have to block out the naysayers. You cannot listen to people that are negative in pursuit of what sets your soul on fire and what you want to go after.
I have a thread to pull right there, especially for any of the listeners who want to compete in the Miss America pageant or what have you. Because let's talk about, eligibility and joining Miss America late in the game. You and I were one of the same. And I have to commend you for competing in California, because when I grew up in California, and again, this goes back to, was I a confident teenager, confident early on in life? Yes and no. I could do National American Miss, I could do a number of other pageants and be fine, but Miss America scared the ever-living hell out of me, because I said I'm not talented enough and I'm not fit enough to do either of these things. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. But I told myself that for so long. I didn't get into Miss America until I was, so I had 21, 22, 23. I had 3 years. And I was going to compete for Miss Rhode Island, and I decided I'd get my feet wet in the local in New York, just because, there's no way I'm ever going to win in New York. I had no intention that I would even place in this local, and I ended up winning the whole thing. And I did it with everything I already had. I had just come off of my final year with National American Miss, was bored, had the pageant bug, wanted to just dive right back into it. And I entered my closest local. I had no car, transportation. I had nothing with me at school. So I got my dad on board to drive on up. I said, Dad, bring that swimsuit that I wore my pageant when I was 16. I'm like, Mom will find it. Bring my prom dress. It's black. I need a black dress. Bring the red dress I have in my closet. Like, that's all I need. Bring it on up. And I borrowed a dress to wear for interview from a sorority sister, which I actually split the butt open before I went into the interview when I bent over.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was fun. And then I was 6 days out of the pageant. I told them that I would do a dramatic monologue. And I called my mom 6 days before, and I'm like, I have no monologue. What am I going to do? And she says, Allie, you did that song from The Little Mermaid in high school when you were 18 years old. You can do that again. Like, you can make that a 90-second piece. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, for like the sake of time, I'm going to sing the Ursula song. We're going to throw the black dress on, call it a day. It wasn't even a dress, like, for the piece. It was just my old prom dress that was chilling at home. Shimmied on into that. And I did this piece, and I thought, well, I'm just going to sing it to get through this pageant. Ended up winning the pageant. Then I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it at Miss New York. And, you know, maybe I'll change it before the next year or the next year or the next year. And I kept going with it, and lo and behold, 3 years later, I'm performing Poor Unfortunate Souls at Miss America, and I look back at that, and I'm like, wait, I've had this song in my back pocket since I was 18 years old, and I sat out the first several years of my ability to compete in Miss America, because I literally told myself day in and day out that I'm not talented enough. And if there's any advice I could give, it's sometimes you need to jump in before you think you're really ready, because if you keep saying, well, I need to do this, I need to do that, eventually life is going to pass you by and the opportunities are going to be gone. And they're going to be the people who said, to hell with it, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do it, whether or not I'm ready, I'm coming.
Oh, 100%. And a part of the reason why I got into it so late was, so one, I really didn't know much about it. I didn't really know if it was something that I wanted to do. And like I said, I was a collegiate athlete, so I kind of had like my mind there. I was like, I don't really like want to do a pageant anymore. Like, it was fun to try when I was a teenager, but it's not for me. And being that I was an athlete, I am short and like stocky. Like, I'm built like a brick, right? Like, and I love the way I'm built. It's taken me a long time to come to terms with loving the skin that I'm in, and which was my platform. Love the skin you're in, creating a healthy lifestyle and mindset with like body positive mindset, because I didn't want to compete because I was like, well, I don't want to be on a stage in a bikini. Like, I'm 5'3.5" on a good day, and I average about 150 like to 160. Like, that's not, they don't want that on their stage. Like, everybody I've ever seen is like, 5'10" and 110, So I definitely let that hold me back for a long time. And we found out about it because I think there were some flyers or emails my mom got about the Princess program. And my sister is about 10 years younger than me. So I think I was 21 and she was 11. And my mom signed her up for the program. And we took her down there. And the directors were like, hey, like, how old are you? You look like you're probably in college. I was like, yeah, I'm in college. And they're like, you should compete. Like, the deadline hasn't passed. I'm like, absolutely not. So one whole year of eligibility goes by, another whole year of eligibility goes by, and finally somewhere in there, I just kicked myself in the pants, and I'm sure my mother had something to do with it too, because she's very much like don't squander anything, don't waste opportunity, don't let it pass you by, because you'll regret it. And so she was probably had a good little nudging in there of getting me to do it. But yeah, I agree with what Allie is saying, because listeners, I swear, if you wait till you're ready, you'll be waiting forever. You'll never do it. Like, you're never going to be as ready as you are right now. So just go for it.
Yeah, I'm all in on that. And, I'm even doing that these days. I signed up for a marathon, and I was like, you know what? Send it. We're just doing it.
Yes.
Like, have I ran a marathon? Heck no. Am I going to? You bet. But the fire is under me now, and you got to start sometime, because before you know it, you've just said someday, someday, someday. Well, all of those days have gone past you, so do it now.
Exactly. There's no better time than the present. So, Allie, I'm really grateful for the time we've been able to share, and we will wrap up your segment by asking you the famous last question of every Exercise Confidence episode, which is, if you could offer our listeners one piece of advice to exercise confidence daily, what would your advice be?
I got to look to my good pal Eleanor Roosevelt on this one, the woman who's guided so much of my life with her words far, far before my time. But those words were, do one thing each day that scares you. And if you continue to practice and not shy away from putting yourself in positions that are uncomfortable or difficult, you are going to be so, so much better for it. I promise you.
There you have it. Wise words from one impactful woman to the next, from Allie Curtis. But Allie, I just cannot thank you enough. I just feel like I could have talked to you for hours and hours, because I love the way that you share things. You put them in such a tangible way, and you make them really comforting to hear. So I thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and I'm sure we'll probably have you back in the future sometime, but you're incredible. Listeners, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, whether it's enlisting or following Allie's journey, all of that information is linked in the episode description. So thank you, Allie. It was a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, Exercise Confidence listeners, there is our episode with Allie Curtis. I love the way Allie is such a passionate trailblazer when it comes to making things a reality that she wants to see happen in this world. She knew that she wanted to forge a path with her career in the National Guard, and she faced it head on. I like that she also shared with us that it's okay to kind of second guess the things that you want to go after in life. But the thing is, you can't stay there. You have to take action, believe in yourself first before anyone else does, and go after whatever it is. And start right now. Don't keep waiting. Don't put it off. So if it's a confidence journey, if it is a fitness journey, career change, whatever it may be, I hope today you are able to exercise confidence in that change that you want to make and go after whatever goals and dreams it is that you have for yourself. Tune in our next episode. We are going to sit down with a really special guest. Her name is Amanda Lee. Amanda is a dear friend of mine and is one of the most vivacious people I have ever met. And her confidence story and journey is so impactful, and I think it is a story that is really important for many people to hear. Amanda is also going to be undergoing surgery at the time that we release her episode. So we want to put it out there on the same day to give her that good juju and to give her those good vibes as she is going to battle colon cancer. So we love you, Amanda. We are so proud of you, and we are so grateful we were able to have you on the show and share your incredible journey. Don't want to miss it. Make sure you tune in on Monday, March 22nd for that episode. But signing off for today, as always, I am JR Nasari, and I truly hope that you find a way to exercise confidence every day.